Welcome, everyone. We're happy to have you. We have two special guests today, Tim, our CTO and co-founder, and a longtime security veteran, and Yan Zhu, Director of Sales Engineering. Tim and Yan will help answer questions in depth during the Q&A session. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded and the link will be shared with all participants. During the presentation, please feel free to type any questions in the Q&A box. At the end of the session, Tim, Yan, and I will answer those questions. You will also see a survey link in the chat window towards the end of the presentation. Your feedback is part of our growth, so please share your feedback so that we can improve. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Hillstone Networks is a security provider with a full set of security product lines, including NPS, Application Delivery Controller, SPDS, the Network Defense and Response Solution, centralized management, and auditing solutions that are not included in this slide here. Today's webinar will focus on the latest release of the Hillstone's security operating system, StoneOS. And what is included in this slide are the products impacted by the StoneOS updates. StoneOS is the foundation for Hillstone's next-gen firewall product lines shown here. They're positioned to protect enterprises at the perimeter, to internal breaches, to the data center, and beyond to the cloud. At the network edge, the E-Series next-gen firewalls provide a full and granular visibility and control of your applications. It identifies and prevents potential threats that are associated with high-risk apps. It delivers policy-based control over apps, users, and user groups, and the policies can be defined to prioritize bandwidth for more critical apps while restricting or blocking unauthorized or malicious apps. The Intelligent Next-Gen Firewalls, the T-Series, focuses on both the perimeter protection and the post-breach detection. It delivers protection based on AI-enabled abnormal behavior analysis. It detects advanced threats and offers signature-based approaches to detect and block threats both pre- and post-breach. Next, you have the data center firewall, the X-Series, which is future-proofed and designed for the modern data center, small or large. It comes with a distributed software architecture that delivers high performance, linear scalability, and high reliability. The X-Series gives admins real-time visibility and control over users accessing the network. It gives complete visibility into the traffic that passes through the network. It also supports the Hillstone patented twin mode firewall feature, which synchronizes redundant data centers. You need this for security and business continuity, and for critical business services to meet your SLAs. In short, it offers full security functions for layer 2 through 7. For cloud security, at the end here, you have Hillstone CloudEdge embedded with the operating system StoneOS, which is deployed as a virtual machine, and it provides advanced security services for apps and users in any virtualized environment, both public and private cloud. It can be rapidly provisioned and deployed at scale. So this should set the stage for the updates that we will focus on in this webinar. This StoneOS release, version 5.5R8, we have over 100 critical feature updates. But because we don't have time to go over 100 plus features, we will focus on the major updates today. StoneOS has been fully re-architected. It now delivers a modular design with robust features that assure consistency across different hardware and virtual platforms. Another major update, as you see on the left, is the user interface, taking into consideration design thinking principles for an overall improvement in the user productivity and experience. So these two items on the left are the high-level updates that are not related to specific features. For the specific features, we have grouped them into the following 5 highlights. Tools to defend against botnets, enhancements for agile configuration and policy management, extended security for data center protection, new features to help consolidate security through the power of virtualization, and more enhancements to integration to IPv6. We'll go through these highlights in detail over the rest of the webinar. Before we start on the 5 feature highlights, let's spend a few minutes reviewing what we have done for a better user experience. We now have an intuitive design-driven user interface. The intention behind the updates is to provide simple access and efficient interaction to minimize the search time, as well as unsolicited actions. Examples of updates include content that is easy to categorize and find, streamlined configuration processes, things like auto pop-up, contextual tips, warnings, and error messages, as well as typical things like standard fonts and sizes, icons. All of these deliver a fresh and easy-to-use experience. So let's dive in, starting with botnet control and command prevention. Well, there are some legitimate and beneficial uses for botnets. Most often, they're used for malicious intent. Command and control CNC or C2 attacks are usually done over DNS. This is done to secure a foothold into the network, to either extract sensitive data or even to take full control of the network. In this release, the key updates for botnet CNC prevention include support for botnet CNC on the data center firewall, the X series, DNS Sinkhole support, DNS tunneling detection, domain generational algorithms, or DGA detection. And the goal of these updates is to reduce the overall vulnerability of the network and to defend against malicious botnets. The Hillstone Data Center Next-Gen Firewall, the X series, is famous for its high throughput performance. We have extended its security now to support botnet CNC detection. Given the damage that botnets can cause, the detection and mitigation of botnet threats are super critical. This release offers protection against malicious botnets with sophisticated tools that help detect and prevent CNC communications and disable botnets. It can discover internal botnet hosts by monitoring the CNC connections. It provides detection for TCP, HTTP, and DNS traffic. And also included is DGA Detection, DNS Sinkhole, and DNS Tunnel Detection. These three we will go over in the following slides. With all these detection tools, the next-gen firewall can block advanced threats, including botnet and ransomware. Let's talk about DNS Sinkhole. This release helps improve DNS Sinkhole support. The DNS Sinkhole can automatically divert faulty DNS response messages to a safe location where admins can then apply specialized security analysis tools. This prevents connection to potentially malicious destinations that could be used for CNC communications. And to help admins further investigate and remediate, admins receive detailed threat log statistics of DNS access requests that had false results. Advanced DNS Tunnel Detection. This is new for the Hillstone Next-Gen Firewall products. It protects the network against data exfiltration, web authorization bypassing, and CNC callback attempts. In data exfiltration, attackers encode data into the payload of an outbound DNS request, and then decode this data when it is received by the CNC server. Attackers can also establish a connection to the CNC server using DNS tunnel to bypass web authentication or firewall protection. Similar to the case of data exfiltration, CNC servers can encode command messages into the payload of a DNS response and send to the clients over DNS tunnel, forming a CNC callback. So how does this work? Our firewalls detect this type of traffic through multiple metrics and methods to protect against it. For example, we can detect and flag suspicious domain names, and we can identify traffic as DNS tunnel traffic by analyzing the traffic statistics. So admins have the tools they need to protect their network. Detection of DGAs. DGA detection has also been added to the X series firewalls. DGA detection is an important defense mechanism for admins because infected hosts often generate pseudo domain names randomly, including CNC server domain names. This enhancement automatically both detects and prevents these traffic types. So how does it work? When you turn the DGA detection feature on in the botnet CNC prevention configuration, the firewall will check whether the domain name in the DNS response is a DGA domain name. For any traffic whose destination IP address is the IP address of a known DGA domain name, it will be identified as a threat and a threat log will be generated. We're making security policy management much easier. For network admins in charge of maintaining security policies, fluctuations in users and resources greatly complicate policy management and enforcement. For example, onboarding multiple new hires places a large workload on IT, but can also introduce new attack vectors if not adequately secured. Over the next couple of slides, we'll talk about some useful tools to reduce the admin's workload with respect to policy management. These include Policy Assistant, Aggregate Policy, Radius Dynamic Authorization, and Policy Optimization, other optimization features. Let's start with the Policy Assistant. This is a feature that's a powerful tool that was launched in the previous release last year, but it's worth underscoring its importance here. It can greatly help admins refine a general policy into multiple detailed policies in 2 instances, when an admin launches a new service or when an admin encounters abnormal behavior. When a new service launches, admins typically won't know specifically what policies should be configured. This tool will help them. They can broadly configure an any-to-any policy and use the Policy Assistant tool to understand the interconnections and access status. They can do this by loading traffic into the Policy Assistant, and the Policy Assistant can then aggregate the traffic and generate more refined policy options. Admins can then easily use and enable these refined policies. The aggregate policy feature helps you group and prioritize policies in batches. This is different than the policy group feature in that the aggregate policy can be managed and modified as one single policy. This capability provides a flexible and powerful way to define a group of policies, which is the aggregate policy, for certain users based on requirements. Admins can prioritize, adjust sequentially, and refine as one block. This very much eases an admin's workload without compromising on protection. Policies can be automatically issued and removed for users using both the aggregate policy and the Radius Dynamic Authorization features. The Radius server does a few things. It deploys user policies to firewalls. It dynamically updates the policies via change of authorization messages, and it removes the policies when the user is offline. Let's look at an example. If a remote worker is using SSL VPN to connect to the network, during authentication, the Radius server issues user policies in the form of an aggregate policy to the next-gen firewall, and then deletes the aggregate policy when the user goes offline. By leveraging the Radius change of authorization messages, aggregate policies for authenticated users can be automatically deployed on firewalls. This means that admins only need to modify the user privilege on the Radius server. No manual configuration on the actual firewall is necessary. Further enhancements for policy management include importing and exporting policies. This allows admins to convert policies into files for easier reading and use. For example, admins can back up and quickly restore or recover a system by importing a policy file. Also, a benefit to DevOps teams. Enhancements to the service rules reduce the complexity for DevOps by opening RESTful APIs and allowing direct configuration of ports and protocols within a given service rule. This release extends security features to deliver advanced protection and performance for the data center. The Hillstone X series is famous for its high throughput performance, and we have extended its security capabilities with botnet CNC detection, antivirus, and more. We will go over the list of features, including terminal server support on user identification over the next 2 slides. The extended security features include full botnet and CNC detection, as we just went over in the first feature highlight section. This is now available for data center protection. Full antivirus is also supported. It provides flow-based virus filtering with real-time updates to the signature database. An enhanced quality of service includes, it's a powerful tool for admins to ensure the overall performance of the network and its services. The Hillstone quality of service is called Intelligent QoS. This tool helps admins make sure that proper bandwidth is allocated and prioritized based on needs and policies. IQoS supports IPv6 and service-based pipe allocation. So what this means is that the data center firewall can now implement IQoS functions in an IPv6 environment. In addition to these new features, this release also has an entire list of enhancements on existing features, what you see on the bottom of the slide here. For instance, IPS, attack defense, URL filtering, among other things listed here. And to summarize, with the latest StoneOS, the X series is even more powerful as a front line of protection for valuable assets in the data center. Terminal server support, in essence, protects Windows remote desktop services. It works like this. The TS agent allocates a range of ports for a specific user. It then synchronizes this information on the firewall. The firewall then creates the range and maps it to the username, and then applies a specific policy to the specific user so that the user can access the network with the appropriate credentials. And now our final highlight on virtualization. The StoneOS upgrade brings key security features to virtual systems. It streamlines configuration and maintenance across different platforms and environments. This consolidation extends the protection to multi-tenant apps through VSYS, short for Hillstone Virtual System. VSYS allows for multi-tenancy by turning one physical appliance into multiple isolated logical virtual firewalls. It also includes extended features for CloudEdge and also a higher performance model that we just released, the VM08. The new release brings additional features such as IP reputation, IQoS, antivirus, and IPv6 traffic forwarding to the non-root virtual systems, meaning the partitioned firewalls. Each VSYS can now operate independently as a fully functioning firewall. Please note that all VSYS configurations are available for exporting for backup and importing for restoration from the user interface. Let's talk about the updates now to CloudEdge. Updates include support for AWS user data, providing a console on AWS for easy configuration of user data. For example, this allows admins to log in and make changes if the management port is accidentally changed. We've also made some additional tweaks to help improve performance. To improve network I/O performance, CloudEdge now supports SR-IOV. Performance is also improved on Azure Hyper-V. Admins can use NetVSC as a driver for the VNIC for Azure Hyper-V to improve overall performance. And finally, CloudEdge can work as a proxy to communicate with the license management system, LMS. For those who are not familiar with the Hillstone LMS, LMS centrally distributes and manages licenses for all CloudEdge and virtual application delivery controller solutions. So now a passive CloudEdge instance can communicate with LMS even without a public IP address configured. So CloudEdge gets a new model, the VM08, which we just announced recently. For customers with high bandwidth workloads that require more performance without compromising on the security feature set, a new CloudEdge model is now available with twice the performance than the nearest model in the family. VM08 is feature-rich in a powerful VM-based firewall that runs in the cloud. It targets high-end performance-hungry apps. And this chart gives you a snapshot comparing it to the older models. Let's take a look at the IPv6 support. IPv6 has the greater connection integrity, security, and scalability that is required by today's standards. Not to mention that a year ago, the pool of unallocated IPv4 addresses were already depleted. The new enhancements in this release help enterprises transition more easily from IPv4 to IPv6 environments. For instance, the next-gen firewalls include full IPv6 support. The features include support for multiplexing and support for IP depletion and traceability issues. And it also supports multiple IPv6 transition technologies. This list on the slide includes the major features and benefits for IPv6 in this release. As you can see, we have support for IPv6 packets that exceed 1280 bytes. We support dual stack endpoints accessing IPv6-based resources over an IPv4 network for a smoother transition. Support for AAA-based user authentication, traffic management, and monitoring in a full IPv6 network. And a high availability solution with twin mode. In an IPv6 deployment, you have synchronization between IPv6 traffic and the control plane. You have active passive failover, and you can also synchronize the dynamic routing protocol. In this slide for your reference is a deeper snapshot of the full set of features in support of IPv6. You can review this at leisure at a later point since we will be sharing the deck with you. And this covers it for today's release highlights. As mentioned, we only covered the highlights. For details of the full feature list in the StoneOS 5.5 R8 release, please refer to the full release notes for all the details. As we've discussed, StoneOS is a foundation for all of the products and solutions in the Hillstone Network firewall portfolio. And it's important to underscore the recognition that it has achieved. Hillstone has been recognized every year for the last 7 years by Gartner's Magic Quadrant for network firewalls. And this year, Hillstone has been positioned highest and furthest in the niche players quadrant for our ability to execute and our completeness of vision according to Gartner. This is continued validation of our commitment to our vision and technology, and we're very proud of this. And an update on our corporate snapshot. We are 18,000 customers strong and growing. We continue to expand our presence globally, expanding partnerships, market reach, and mind share. And we continue to be recognized by the industry and by our peers, and as well as our clients. And now I'll pause and ask Tim and Yan to join us for the Q&A. Tim and Yan, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Tim. So let me take a look at the Q&A. Looks like the first question is, how many VSYS are supported in the next generation firewall?
The NG firewall supporting the virtual system depends on the platform models that you choose. On the high-end data center firewalls, we support up to 1,000 virtual systems.
Okay, thank you. The next question here is, do you support IPv6 in twin mode?
Yes, IPv6 is supported in twin mode starting from this release, and it's supported in the twin mode active passive mode.
Okay. And I think we have one last question here. Do you support Sandbox?
Yes, the full series of Hillstone NG Firewall support Cloud Sandbox. So both the E series, T series, X series, and CloudEdge support the Sandbox feature. For the correct version of firmware to use, you can contact your local sales rep, or you can contact our tech assistance center. Yes, so the Cloud Sandbox features are supported on all the NG Firewall series.
Okay, thank you. I see another question here. Is Hillstone Cloud Hive also covered in this major release?
No, this release only covers the EE series, T series, X series, and CloudEdge. So Cloud Hive is covered in separate firmware releases.
Okay, thank you. I want to double check. I don't see any other questions. So thank you, Tim, and thank you, everyone. That's all for today. I know it's a lot of information, but we are here to support you. So please reach out to us with any questions that you might have offline. The email and the contact information is on the slides. So reach out to us at inquiry at hillstone.com. But before you leave, please take a moment to click on the survey link in the Q&A box and submit your feedback, please. We sincerely appreciate your support. Thanks, everyone.